All right. Hello, everybody. It's Andrea Jenson with the Cash Flow CFO. And today I'm joined with Nicole Soares from B Squared Credit. And let me just jump in real quick to make sure we are live. All right, perfect. Okay, well, welcome, Nicole. We are live in our Facebook group, and I'm super excited to be having this conversation for our business owners to learn a little bit more about their credit, what credit is, and why it's super important to be paying attention to it, and especially now with everything that's happened in the economy and in the world. What are 3 things that they could be taking actionable steps on to help put themselves in a better position as individual consumers, as business owners? So welcome.
Thank you for having me. I look forward to helping kind of demystify the credit score because it is quite confusing.
Absolutely. It's probably one of the top questions that I get asked a lot is, what's the difference between business and personal credit and how does it all work? So
Right.
It's going to be really, really good info for everybody in this group. So let's go ahead and jump in. So will you introduce yourself and tell us about your business?
Sure. So thanks again for having me. My name is Nicole Soares. I'm the owner and CEO of B Squared Credit. I've had this company for about 8 years now, and my whole background has been predictive analytics, and that's really what the credit score is. And so looking at large data sets and being able to predict how likely something is to happen is kind of, at a high level how the credit score works, right? So we have ranges from 350 to 850. The higher the score, the higher probability that you'll repay your debt, and therefore the lower risk you are. And so for me, after being in this industry, I worked for Bank of America for 13 years out of Arizona, working throughout all of their credit card systems. So from collections to credit to fraud, really all of the key areas there. And then FICO, the credit scoring company, relocated me to San Diego when I came to work for them. And so I really got to be entrenched in really how the models were designed. At Bank of America, I was using the models in order to determine when we wanted to approve an application or when we wanted to close an account because somebody became very high risk. And then I got to go work for the actual vendor that created the products to actually determine that risk. So now, as the owner of B Squared, I get to take all of that knowledge and be able to actually help consumers really understand how credit scores are calculated. And especially for a lot of the consumers I work with around the nation, if they had a life event, maybe they had a divorce or maybe they had a medical issue, financially they were negatively impacted, how do they recover? Not only financially, but usually obviously it impacts their credit score too. So, really looking at that credit report, helping the client put them on the path to be able to raise those scores again. Sometimes it's through coaching and sometimes it's through services like credit repair. Every client's different. And so I get to really work now directly with consumers to help them accomplish that.
Awesome. Yeah, that's I love your background because you really have seen both sides of it. You've seen, you were using the methodology and now you have the experience of actually being in the company that is creating that methodology and seeing it firsthand. Right. So I love that what that's given you now as a small business owner to be able to take all of that and bring it to the people that need it the most, the business owners that are out there trying to get credit cards and get credit and grow their business and hire teams and all of those things that, you need the cash for. And so very, very cool.
The thing is, a lot of times we have to back up our, we have to, as consumers, even if we're a business owner, we have to be able to have good individual credit because it's utilized to make the decision on what they want to lend to us. Mm-hmm. And so it really comes down to company by company. The lender gets to decide if it's going to report to your personal credit versus your business credit. And it's confusing. A lot of times it's in the small print on the application. A lot of times the agent, or, the representative at the bank, the loan officer, whoever you're working with, they honestly have no idea if this is going against your consumer credit report, your personal credit report, or if it's going to report to your business credit report. So it is important for us to understand that, and obviously have good consumer credit, because that data is often utilized to make that business loan decision.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Is there a point where maybe your business credit is built up enough that they no longer use your personal credit as like a guarantee?
It's very different by company. Every bank, every lender makes that determination. And really it comes down to what type of company you have, whether it be corporate or sole prop or LLC. And some of it is dependent on that, and some of it is dependent on the lender.
Yeah.
It's all over the place. I haven't really seen some consistency there.
Gotcha. Yeah. And that makes a lot of sense too, because, if you're a sole prop, it's going to be your personal, or if you're a single LLC, or so totally, that makes a lot of sense.
But it is really important to build business credit separately.
Okay.
And even just look at your business credit reports, which is a different data source than where we go get our consumer credit reports, right? So Experian has a good business credit report. So if you haven't looked at it before, you can go and get that through Experian. You don't have to go and get Dun & Bradstreet. There's other reports out there in order to be able to understand. Most of us don't have a profile at all because we haven't made an effort to build business credit. And so understanding what's on there and then obviously building that out is key.
Awesome. Yeah. And we'll post in the group here for everybody, we'll post some of the links where you can go to pull that business credit report. And then also we'll be talking with Nicole about how you can protect your business credit.
Yeah, and the report formats are very different. They don't provide the same trade level data, the same account level data that we get on our consumer reports. So they're much more thin, and a lot of times information only will report if it's negative versus positive. So it is a very different report to read.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I think we'll probably have to do some more trainings where we're going deeper into that and really showing our Facebook group how to use that, and because it really, it's so important. And like you said, a lot of business owners don't even know where to get started with building a credit profile for the business. So.
Yeah, I think the key now and a lot of folks that might be part of this group that they should really understand is, even from a personal standpoint, how are our credit scores calculated? There's so much confusion out there. And so one of my, things that I'm most passionate about is just trying to help people understand why, when you go to Credit Karma, does your credit score say you're a 680, but then when you go to apply for credit, your loan officer tells you it's a 580. To me, that's probably the most common question I get. And so I just thought maybe we could take a few minutes to try to explain that so that people can understand how credit scores differ and what the cause of that is. And then once we have a good understanding of, okay, great, now we know, what our true scores are. Now, how do we go about improving our credit scores? And so we can also look at a pie chart and really how the FICO credit score is broken down so that we can show you, quick wins and ways to raise your credit score, and, also, different techniques like credit repair that can help. If you had a setback, there's items on there that are negative. How do you recover from those? Does that sound good?
Absolutely. I think that's fantastic.
Okay. All right, good. I'm going to share a slide or two. So let me pull that up.
Okay.
And play. All right. So I'm going to focus on, actually, just give me 1 second. I'm going to back up for just a moment.
Sure.
So this slide, I think, is a good one to start on. So to answer the question I asked earlier is, why do your credit scores differ between, let's say, Credit Karma and what a loan officer pulls? The easiest answer is credit scores differ by bureau, by brand, and by day. And what I mean by that is there's 3 major national credit bureaus, right? We have we have TransUnion, we have Equifax, and we have Experian. And when you look at each of those three credit bureaus, each of them has a unique data set. So they house data. As an example, if you're in California, and let's say you have a parking ticket in San Diego, if that turns into a collection because you failed to pay it, that only reports to Experian. For whatever reason, the city of San Diego only has decided to provide collection data to Experian. So in a situation like that, your TransUnion and Equifax might have cleaner data because it has one less, let's say, issue like a collection like Experian does. So just understand that each company manages a unique data set, and that often those data sets don't match, right? And the data sets, let's just refer to it more specifically as the credit report data, right? So number one is we have three data sources, and sometimes those credit reports just differ in the data that's housed on them. And then the next thing I wanted to show you is, sorry, this one here. So when we talk about brand, that's where the biggest confusion comes from. FICO credit scores are created by Fair Isaac, the company that I worked for in the past, and 90% of lenders use FICO credit scores in order to decision a loan, regardless on if it's a credit card or a mortgage loan, whatever it is we're applying for. They really only trust the FICO credit score because it's been around for a long time, and therefore it's utilized in their decisioning. It's utilized not only to determine if something should be approved, but also what something should be priced at, right? We call that risk-based pricing. So the FICO score is really important. But when you go to Credit Karma or some of these other online tools in order to look at a copy of your credit report and scores, most of those companies actually give you what's called a Vantage credit score. The unfortunate thing is in very, very tiny print hidden somewhere, they disclose that. Otherwise, they just talk about it as if it's a credit score. So that's what creates a lot of this confusion, is we're looking at two different brands. In this slide here, what I want to show you is why they differ. So for example, again, on my Vantage, I might have a 680, but in my FICO, I have a 580. Well, how is that possible? I use an analogy of ketchup. So Heinz owns the market. They're like the FICO of credit scoring, right? Heinz owns the market around the world because they sell, the most ketchup. But when you go to the grocery store, you see that there's a generic like Vaughn's Safeway brand ketchup. You see that there's multiple other vendors of ketchup. Some of them are spicy, some are organic, some are, not so much. So FICO to me is like the organic Heinz ketchup, right? It doesn't have corn syrup in it. It's healthy. It's more expensive. Maybe it's $5 a bottle. But when I'm having a birthday party for my son who's 12, maybe I'm going to go ahead and buy the generic ketchup from Safeway that's on sale, and I'm paying $2 for that. That one has corn syrup in it, but it's still ketchup. To me, that's the Vantage credit score. It's still a credit score. It still predicts risk, but it's got some corn syrup in it. Gotcha. And so it's great to get an idea of what your approximate scores are, but it really isn't something that you trust or anyone is going to price or make a decision off of.
Gotcha.
I'll stop there for a second. I don't know if that analogy resonates or not, or if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So it's kind of like the Vantage is a snapshot where the FICO is like the real. They're doing everything very, I guess, more thoroughly.
No, I mean, at the end of the day, it hasn't been developed for very long. The Vantage score came about maybe in the last 10 years or so. And so it just doesn't have enough data in trust by the market as to really call it predictive. So let me give you an example of why the scores would differ. So let's take the left pie chart, which is the FICO score. So it's saying 30% of your overall credit score is how much of your credit limits on your revolving accounts you're using. So let's say I have 2 credit cards. In total, I have $10,000 of credit limits, and I'm carrying $5,000 of balances on those cards. So that means I'm 50% utilized, right? that impacts 30% of my credit score. And if you go to Vantage, it's 23% of my credit score. So my point being is if I have, which 50% is pretty high, if I'm using a lot of my open to buy on my credit cards, my FICO score is going to be more negatively impacted than my Vantage credit score because it's a bigger part of my credit scoring calculation.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense just on that one part of the pie chart?
Yeah, that makes
sense.
Okay,
so that's to me the different ingredients, right? So, like with ketchup, it just happens to have more tomatoes in it, than corn syrup or something. I mean, it's just that the ingredients are different. But at the end of the day, they're both predictive and they're both creating a score. So when we really think of the credit score, think of it this way: 65% of your credit score is actually your good credit. So I want that to resonate for a second. So when somebody comes to me and says, I need help fixing my credit score, if I'm not an expert on how that credit score is calculated, I'm missing out. Like if I only focus on the 35% on the FICO score, which is the negative part of the credit score, I can do credit repair and I can help clean up 35%. But as a credit expert, I also have to educate the client on the 65%, which is their good credit, their behavior on their good credit in order to greatly influence that credit score.
Yep.
So that's the real key for working with a credit expert is like if you go out to the Lexington Laws out there that do credit repair, they don't know how to read the model. They don't know how to influence that 65%. All they do is focus on cleaning up that 35%.
Right.
And so that's a problem because you're not really getting the end result that you're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
So let's just kind of continue down this pie chart for a moment. So length of credit history on the FICO side is 15%. On the Vantage side, it's 13%. So that's meaning like account maturity, right? So it's important not to open and close accounts with like credit cards. We want to have credit cards that have nice maturity that we keep for long periods of time. Mm-hmm. We're looking at new credit is 10% on FICO, but 7% on Vantage score. So that's inquiries, brand new open account, things like that. Mm-hmm. And then 10% is type of credit used. And what I mean by that is mix of account types. So if you only have credit cards and you don't have installment loans or mortgages, you're missing out on 10% of your credit score there. So overall, similar models, but weighted differently. So therefore, the output score between the two credit scoring models differ.
Mm-hmm. Got it. So if you're watching this live, and let me know if this is making sense to you. Put some comments in down below. Drop some emojis so we know that.
Yeah, it's kind of hard without having something to point at, and I don't know that. Hopefully that was helpful. But the other thing I just want to say is the credit models, whether they be FICO or Vantage or Credit Expert, there's other brands out there. All they do is apply the analytics. They don't house data. So FICO doesn't do anything with their own data. They just take their predictive analytics and apply it to the data at the 3 credit bureaus. So remember, the credit bureau data is the same. It's the model and how to predict the risk that's unique by credit scoring vendor.
Okay, awesome. We're getting some comments, some thumbs up. Hi, this is great. Following nicely. Jeanette says hello. Hi, Jeanette. Awesome. Okay, so let's go ahead and keep moving. Everybody is following along, so that's good.
Okay, so at the end of the day, we want to understand what our credit score is. I really like Identity IQ. That's my preferred vendor whenever I want to do a soft pull. A soft pull just means that I want to look at my credit report without inquiry, which is a hard inquiry, right? And because a hard inquiry can actually drop my credit score. Mm-hmm. So I'm just looking at it for education. I'm not applying for something. So that's the difference between a hard inquiry and a soft inquiry. So if you're going to apply for a loan, that's a hard inquiry. And yes, it could hurt your credit score, but that's okay. If you're trying to get a loan, that's okay. As long as it's not excessive, the impact can be very, very minimal or none at all. But whenever we're just trying to keep educated on how things are going, like maybe you're wanting to buy a home in the next 6 to 12 months or get some type of business loan in the next 6 or 12 months, you really should monitor your credit, but do it in a way that's only a soft pull so it doesn't hurt your credit score. And in that situation, I like Vantage credit scores. I just like to see the trends over time. And so for Identity IQ, that's what they provide. It's inexpensive to monitor your credit. So that's why we use that particular preferred vendor. So I'll share my discount link with them so anybody can use that. They offer a 7-day trial for $1. So at any time you can look at the credit report. If you don't want to monitor your credit after the 7-day trial, you can call them and cancel. If you do want to monitor, then you'll get their monthly rate of $19.99. I think the rate that we get on our discount is about 35% less than the retail rate. So you'll get that monthly reduction too, which is great.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you for that. And I think that everybody should have, I mean, for $20 a month, I think that everybody should be doing that to just, it's like a little insurance policy. You know, if you see something crazy 1 month from the next, you're able to quickly take action on that. So I think that's really important to have.
Yeah, and if anyone wants me to look at it, we always provide each consumer one free credit analysis. So it's very easy for me once I get the 3 bureaus and scores to look at it. If you share with me what your specific goals are, what you're trying to accomplish, that's always helpful. But I'll look and I'll say, okay, you know, here's based on the 65% of your good credit, maybe your credit's too thin, maybe it's not mature enough, maybe you're taking out high risk installment loans, and that's a detriment even if you're paying it back. Just by taking out risky account types, it can actually drop your credit score. Do you have sufficient number of credit cards? Are you carrying low balances? So all of that is part of the free consultation. I'm looking and I'm just giving an education to say, do these 3 things. This is going to raise your credit score maybe around 50 points on your own within the next 30 days. Mm-hmm. So that's something that's quick and easy. Now, if there's negative items, and even one medical collection can drop your credit score 80 points. Yeah. For us, we get 90% of medical collections off credit reports, 90%, right? So we have very strong deletion rates on utility collections and medical collections. So even if you pay them, unfortunately, that doesn't give you that credit score benefit. You actually have to get them fully deleted from your credit report in order to see that 80+ point credit score improvement. Gotcha. So if you're a good fit for credit repair, then that's something that we can help you with as part of our paid service.
Mm-hmm. So I have a question for you. One thing that you said was a risky account that you're taking credit.
Okay.
Would that be like a cabbage loan or an on-deck loan or one of those, I hate to say predatory.
Yeah. So and this, for this group of people, that's probably really informative or, you know, important for them to understand. So anything that's an unsecured installment loan. Okay. I don't care if it's for furniture because it still often will still show unsecured. Sometimes they're showing secured. Think of it this way, though. FICO has data that says people that take out these types of loans have higher default rates. So you're guilty by association.
Interesting.
If you choose to take out risky accounts. So even though you personally may be paying them back, you know, per agreement or, you know, per the contract, because other people don't, your credit score will be negatively impacted.
Wow.
Isn't that crazy?
That's crazy. I didn't know that.
Yeah. Yeah. So be careful on high risk loans, anything unsecured. And almost always, I mean, if it has a high interest rate, it's a high risk, yeah. Right?
And what's considered a high interest rate? Is it anything over 10%, 15%?
You know, the rates differ, but I would say any time you're paying, you know, more than 8 to 10, 8 to 12%. Again, if it's unsecured, it's always high risk, in my opinion. If it's from the payday loan companies, I have a really big market in New Mexico, and I swear they sell them on every street corner, and then they tell them that it helps them build credit, so everybody goes out and does them, gets them. So, you know, so I would say anything that's like any type of furniture type loan that the furniture company will sell you, and or anything unsecured, you just want to be really careful with. And sometimes it's okay. Think of it this way. Think of it as tactical versus strategic. Like tactically, I might decide that I want to invest in my business. I'm going to take a $15,000 loan and I'm going to take a 10% interest rate on that loan. And for the next year, it's just something I need to do because it's an important way of building my business. That's okay, as long as I'm not going to try to make a major purchase in the next year, because after it becomes 12 months old, I've proven I'm responsible for it and I'll get a lot of those points back and some. So it's not that it's a bad thing in the short term, and you will see your scores really come down in the short term. But once it's 12 plus months old, you've already proven yourself, you've differentiated yourself from the masses who've defaulted, and then you should be fine. So it's fine if it's strategic. It's just going to be a temporary hit you will recover from as long as you pay it back on time.
Gotcha. Okay, that's really an important piece of information too, because sometimes, if you're in a cash crunch, your options might be limited. Right. And so that's fine to do what you need to do, but just as far as planning for other big purchases, all right.
Yeah, and I would still say that's a better decision than maxing out your credit cards, because that's an immediate, 50, 60 point, decline to your credit score. So if it is to pay off credit card debt, or, you can keep your revolving utilization rate down, then, again, and I'll make these recommendations. Like if you come to me and say, this is what I'm trying to do, I'll let you know, even what lenders I would suggest for those types of loans or things like that, that might be best for you.
Perfect. Maybe we'll ask you to be a regular contributor to our Facebook group, because there's just so many, layers of this information that business owners need to be aware of, and nobody's talking about it anywhere, really. There's a lot of people talking to the individual consumers about credit, but businesses. That's awesome. We have a question in the comments here. Why monitor their versus credit reporting services on credit cards?
So those are great, but you're typically not getting your trade line level information. You're typically just getting a credit score. Most of those will give you a FICO credit score, but they'll typically give you a FICO credit card credit score. So I didn't go into this earlier because it's getting a little deep, but even within FICO, they have more than one product, more than one model, right? If you're going to get a home loan, the bank will pull a FICO mortgage credit score. But if you have a credit card, they're going to pull a FICO credit card. So those are great just to kind of track where your credit scores are. If all of a sudden you see a major decline or something's changed and you want to know why, then to get the actual trade line level data, which is what I would need to analyze your situation, then a full credit monitoring service would be best. The other thing I like about Identity IQ, for any of you guys that find it difficult to read a credit report, is I really like the side-by-side view. So each credit bureau is in a unique column, side by side. And so for me, as an example, let's say we have a medical collection. TransUnion might be reporting it as if it's brand new, but then if I go over to Equifax, and again, they're on the same row, 3 columns, all of a sudden I see on Equifax it's 5 years old. I can tell that TransUnion is re-aging that debt to make it look brand new, where Equifax is reporting a true date. That helps me with the techniques that I use to challenge misreporting information. So for me, it's a big part of how I develop my techniques on how I'm going to address each particular issue. But for my consumers, that all of my credit repair clients have Identity IQ turned on. It's a prerequisite because we need to together be able to monitor the credit. For our clients, they love the view because it's just easy for them to understand item by item what's going on in their report.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's awesome. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're up at the half-hour mark here. What would you say are the top 3 things that our business owners can be doing right now to improve their credit?
Number one, just get educated. Figure out what your real scores are. I mean, it's so hard for customers to think one thing like, oh, I have a 700 credit score, and then come to find out later when they're applying for credit, it's much, much lower. Just find out what your real FICO scores are. And by the way, myfico.com is like Identity IQ. So if I have a client that we really need to know their true FICO scores, we'll actually pull my FICO instead. Don't really care for the report format, but it gives me every one of the FICO models, and it's a lot more expensive. But again, just figure out what your real data is. And then number two, get a consultation if your credit score isn't where you want it to be. Happy to help with that. And then from there, especially with the consultation, you're going to get a list of homework, right? Some of it I can help you with, some of it you can do on your own, and then take action on that. Sometimes it's quick and easy to get 100-point improvement. So don't accept that your scores aren't what you want. Get the help, get educated. It's too important. It impacts everyday life, all of our aspects of life, whether we get, I know not for this population, but employers look heavily at your credit score to determine if they want you to work for them. It has a very direct correlation with character and level of trust. And so if your credit score doesn't represent the real you and your character, then let's fix that. It's not acceptable. Don't just sit back and think it's okay. Let's actually take actions to get it where you want it to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think a couple of things that you mentioned that I want to point out is when we talk about cash flow, which is the thread of every conversation that I have in this group with my clients, it's cash flow. And if we looked at and isolated, how much are you paying in interest on your outstanding debt right now? And if you were to, spend the time, get the professional help to get your credit into a better position, how much lower, could you get those interest rates? And that's dollars in your pocket, really.
Exactly.
So the trade-off is so, there's very few places you can say, if I do this, I'm going to get this, and know that that is true. And that's one of those that you can say, there's an extra $6,000 to $8,000 that could be in your business that you could be spending on hiring, on growing, on all of those other things that are really important. So that's why this is something that everybody needs to just get educated. Start there, get educated, and then you'll see it's not as scary as it seems to be. And I think a lot of that is just people don't know.
Yep, knowledge is power for sure.
Yeah.
And the other thing is we help clients a lot with student loan data, student loan, whether it be, should you consolidate? Are your loans in default? Do you need a lower monthly payment? Anything related to student loans, let me know. I'm happy to help with that too. That's a big part of the services that we offer clients. And if you have adult kids and you're trying to qualify for student loans to help them get through college, ask me about those things. Let's talk proactively before you start taking out loans like Parent Plus loans, which are just horrible. But just make sure that you're getting the right loan types, and also help our adult kids, 18 plus, help them build credit from the very beginning. And I can teach you very quick, easy techniques. I'll give you the plan for free on how to build credit quickly so that they can qualify for their own student loans, and you don't have to co-sign. So anything related to credit and decisioning of applications, really, I'm happy to help.
Awesome. Okay, so what I'm going to do is ask everybody in this group to post in the comments what you want to learn more about, and we'll invite Nicole back to come in and do a micro training on whichever topic everybody is asking for. And I think it's super, important. And I love what your service does, Nicole. So if anybody would like a personal connection to Nicole and her company, I'm happy to do that also. I work with them personally, so I can say that they're lovely and they do a good job. So if anybody, whether you're live now or you're watching the replay, put it in the comments what you want to dive a little deeper in and understand more, and we'll ask Nicole to come back and do a training for us. All right. So Nicole, do you have anything else to add before we wrap up today?
I don't think so. Thanks for having me on. I know it's always a challenge when on these Zoom calls to be able to convey the message. So hopefully the message got through. And if anyone wants, I wrote a booklet. It's called Credit Scoring 101. It really goes deeper into why the credit scores differ by bureau, by brand, and by day. So I can share that link as well so folks can read it on their own and follow up with me individually.
Awesome. Yeah. Drop a comment in if you want us to send you that brochure, the booklet, and we'll get that over to you also. So thank you so much, Nicole. I think this was awesome. And I love sharing this type of information with our group and with business owners in general, because it's so important that everybody knows what's going on and is able to be proactive about saving money. So thank you for your time today.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. We will end there, and we'll wait to hear back on everybody's comments. Oh, we do have some here. All right. Nicole was great. I'd like to
thank you.
Thank you, ladies. Business credit. Planning for the kids. Yes, absolutely. All right. You are so welcome. All right. I hope everybody has a great day.
All right. Bye. Thanks, Andrea.